Brilliant.
Perfect. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this One Nucleus Life Science Marketing Group in collaboration with BioStrata Limited. So today, this webinar is going to review the 5 main factors that commonly undermine life science lead generation campaigns and provide you with some solutions to get better results. So as with all of our life science marketing groups, the aim is to really harness the knowledge of our network and our members. So I'm delighted to be joined today by Dr. Paul Avery, CEO and Head of Strategic Marketing at BioStrata Limited, to take us through the presentation. Before beginning, just a couple of quick notes from myself. So we'd be really grateful if you can stay on mute during the presentation. And also just a quick reminder that we are recording and we'll make it available to attendees post-event and also as part of the One Nucleus on-demand content. So this session actually is intended to be a fairly interactive session. So I'm going to now hand over to Paul, who's going to guide us through the upcoming content and also what is required to get us all involved. So over to you, Paul. Thanks.
Lovely. Thanks ever so much, Alicia and Natalie, for setting this up, and to the wider One Nucleus team for allowing us to be a part of this. Very, very excited to be here with you all today. So yes, let's get cracking. There is some technology involved, so hopefully everything will work as intended. But if we do have any issues, I'm sure we'll find ways around it. So today we are going to talk about the 5 reasons that life science lead generation campaigns fail and what you can do about them. Because lead gen campaigns, they are a little bit like walking on a high wire. They're really exciting, they're really dynamic. When they work really well, it's really rewarding, but they are inherently risky. Quite a few things can go wrong, and we really want to give ourselves the best chance of success. And so today's presentation is kind of designed to be this safety harness here. It does not reduce the risk or remove the risk completely of lead generation campaigns. They're hard to get right, but hopefully with some of the foundational elements that we'll look at today, it will arm you with some useful tools to help make sure that you can get the best results. So some brief intros to start with. My name is Paul Avery. I'm a recovering scientist. So I did my PhD in developmental biology many moons ago before moving into marketing and communications. I am now CEO of BioStrata, which is an integrated team of 25 specialists. We specialize in life science marketing only. We only work with life science clients. And to give you a feel for that experience, where we're coming from, and what the experience we've infused into this presentation today, we've worked with over 200 life science companies over the years. And between us, we worked out that we've got something like, I think it's more like 125 now, but well over a century of experience helping life science companies market and sell their solutions. So that's intro number 1. Intro number 2, this is the exciting technology part that we hope works, is for you to get involved. I'd really love you to be a part of today's session. So I want to introduce you to Vivox, which is a audience engagement system. So what I need you to do is, if you have your mobile phone, or if you want to open a browser on the computer where you're watching this session, you can visit vivox.app and type in this number, or you can use the camera on your phone to take a picture or interact with that QR code, and you should be able to access the system. And I can see that it's up and running on my mobile phone, so hopefully you can all see it too. When you've loaded it up, it looks a little bit like this. The first screen you'll see, at least if you're on a desktop computer, is this top one. What I want you to do is I want you to navigate up to the sort of chat looking icon that you can see here on the left. And if you click on that, that is where you can enter your questions during the session. And then at the end of the session, we will get through as many as we can. There is also like a liking, upvoting system. So feel free to check that out throughout the session and vote up any questions that you'd love to see answered. So that's the thing that will be going on in the background. The other thing we'll be doing is some quizzes and some polls. So if when I launch a poll, you'll see it pop up in the app, and you'll have the opportunity to enter in your answer to the quiz or the poll or whatever it may be. The polls only pop up when they're open, so you won't see them at the moment. And whenever we have one, I'll have them on the screen here, so you'll know that it's time for you to interact with the app. So the third introduction then is for me to meet all of you, or at least as hopefully as quickly and as close as we can do in this type of system. And it's also a great opportunity for us to try out the system. So let us open up the poll here. I'd love for you all to enter in. What is your primary role? Marketing, sales, CEO, leadership, operations, or other? Look at that, we've got 15, 18 already. This is super fast. Fantastic. We'll give 5 more seconds for you to enter your answer. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Brilliant. So let's close that poll and we'll have a little look at who we've got with us today. Look at that. So 2/3 of you are in a marketing role, a decent chunk in sales and business development, and then also a handful of CEO senior leadership here. That is fantastic. That was kind of what I was expecting. And hopefully it's going to make the next slide make some sense then, because before we get into the meat of the presentation, we have made a few assumptions as it relates to what content that we're going to be focusing on. So the first one is that we're all familiar with a lot of marketing fundamentals like the sales funnel, what the marketing team does and what its role is in lead generation, the types of tactics that life science marketers typically use to generate leads. We're not going to cover any of that in any detail today. It's sort of an assumption that you all have a reasonably strong feel for it. The other things that we're not going to touch upon is lead generation even the right goal for your team? It's a goal for many life science marketing teams, but it's not always the right goal. We're not actually going to go into too much detail on that. We're going to assume that you know you need to generate leads, and that's why you're on the call. The other things we're not going to touch upon are sort of foundational strategic marketing elements, so that your value proposition and your messaging and your unique selling points are tailored to the goals and challenges of your target audiences, or that your offers that you're promoting in your lead generation campaigns through ads and emails, etc., are based on things that customers would find interesting and that would likely drive action, both content-based offers like ebooks and stuff, and product-based offers like, I don't know, product discounts or new product introductions and all that type of thing. So we're not going to touch on any of those. We're going to see those as foundational elements, and we're going to look at some other areas related to generating leads. So why are we here? Well, the main reason that I get excited about this topic is we spend huge amounts of money on lead generation. So in a survey done, I think 2 years ago, of B2B companies in the US alone were spending over $2 billion a year on lead generation. But as we'll see in some of the stats as we get data later into this presentation, there are a number of things that are absolutely essential to the success of lead generation programs that people are not doing. And if that's the case, then those companies might be better off actually just setting fire to their money and using it to keep warm, or for whatever nefarious purposes the Joker's using it for here. So that's why we're here today, is to talk about how we can make sure we're getting the best out of our lead generation budgets. To do that, we're going to look at 5 key reasons that lead gen campaigns fail. We're going to look at budget and scope, offers and channels, website optimization, nurturing and handover, and performance tracking. So let's get into reason number 1 that lead gen campaigns fail. Not a very sexy one, but very important one, is lack of appropriate budget, and the budget is spread too thin. So it's polling time. So back to your app or your browser window. I'll open the poll now so you can start interacting with it as you like. How much does your company invest in marketing as a function of revenue? Is it less than 1% of revenue, 1 to 5%, 6 to 10, 10%, more than 10%, or don't know? And I should say the Q&A system, the polling system, everything is anonymous. I can't see what questions you've asked. I can't see what answers what you've put in the polls, and nor can anyone else. So please, it would be great to get a really good, accurate feel for where we are all at. So feel like you can be as honest as you like. If you don't know, that's absolutely fine. Let's just gather all that information in the poll. Right, I will give you 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's close that poll up. Interesting. Okay, cool. This is really, really handy. So investment in marketing in the life sciences, in our experience, is marketing is chronically underfunded in the life sciences. And why do I say chronically underfunded? So I want to keep in mind here that nearly 40% of you are investing less than 5% of revenue in marketing, and a decent chunk of you don't know, and so could realistically be in those groups as well. And so the CMO survey, they survey B2B marketing leaders every year. And in 2020, the average budget for marketing across B2B was 8.6% of revenue. That was the average. For fast growing companies, it was typically north of 10%. And for companies in more stable markets or that have a very strong market position that maybe don't necessarily invest in marketing as much, it was maybe 5% or slightly lower. But 8%, 8.6%, 8 to 10% was kind of that gold standard for how much companies should be investing in marketing as a function of revenue. So if you want a bit more detail on this, we did also write a blog post that goes into a bit more detail you can find on our site. How much should a life science company spend on marketing? If you type that into Google, you'll be able to find that blog post. So where does that put you? Are you investing the right amount in marketing to achieve your goals? Because whilst it looks like in the life sciences, and certainly our poll suggests that today, that marketing is underfunded in our sector compared to general B2B, in my experience, the goals are no less challenging. It's just the budgets are lower. So where does your company sit? Is this the time to be looking at some of this data and thinking, please, sir, can I have some more budget? Because if we want to achieve the goals that we're looking for, we're going to have to invest a bit more. Or actually, you're on the side where actually you're quite flush with cash. You've got a good, strong budget, and then it's about putting it to the best work. Keep that in mind as we move into the next part of this section. So the next thing about your budget is not just have you got enough, and in many cases the answer is no, but it's also where are you spending it. So looking at this quite broadly, one thing that we typically see is that because there are so many cool, exciting channels available to us as marketers these days, it's very tempting to invest in inbound marketing and content marketing and SEO, PPC, sponsored social, paid email. I'm going to do banner ads with 10 different publishers. It's so very tempting. But the problem is if your budget's limiting, and for most companies it is, if you spread yourself that thin, you're only doing one or two emailers or one or two banner ads. It's not enough to know for sure, can we get results from that channel? It's not enough to be able to really test out what different offers are going to work best in that channel. In general, you're going to be better off investing more in a handful of channels and doing them well than you are spreading yourself too thin. And this is something that we also typically see happens a lot in the life science industry. So as it relates to reason number one, lack of appropriate budget that's spread too thin, what can you do about it? Well, firstly, ensure that you're investing enough in marketing to meet your goals. Don't spread your budget too thin. And give new tactics a fair chance. Give the tactics you're investing in a chance to give you enough data to know confidently whether they'll work for you or not. And also just to give yourself the best chance of actually getting some good results. Reason number two is wrong offers and or channels to meet the goal. So this one's a bit more complex. What do I mean by that? So let's get, you can't have a marketing presentation without a sales funnel on it. Woo! People playing sales funnel bingo. You have to drink now. So we've simplified the sales funnel into tofu and bofu, so top of the funnel and bottom of the funnel. I realize many of us are operating with much more complex sales processes and sales funnels, but let's simplify it for the sake of this discussion. When you're running campaigns, in general, you're targeting people either at the bottom of the funnel or the top of the funnel, approximately. What do we mean by that in more detail? Well, let's look at bottom of the funnel first. At the bottom of the funnel, we're targeting those people who are actively looking for a solution. They have buying intent and they want to access product solution-y type content so that they can buy. And pretty imprecise research suggests that only a small fraction of the market are in this stage at any given point, maybe 1 to 3%. And these leads are great because they're likely to buy soon. But the bad thing about these leads is in general, there's fewer of them, and that they're higher cost. On the other side, if we look at the top of the funnel, then in this case, we're addressing a much larger chunk of the addressable market. These people are in a learning and discovery mode. They may be looking to buy and they may not. We don't really know because the approaches we're taking to target them with educational or inspirational content are just as applicable to people who are looking to buy as who are not. But they do allow us to address much more of the market. So the great thing about tofu leads is there's lots more of them, and in general, they're lower classed, but they're less likely to buy soon. And so we need to have mechanisms in place for how we're going to nurture those leads and push them closer to a sale, which is something we'll talk about in a bit more detail in a moment. So the $1 million question, of course, is which should you do? And like all great $1 million questions, the answer is it depends. So in general, in our experience, the most effective lead generation programs actually employ a balance of tofu offers and channels and bofu offers and channels. So top of the funnel activities and bottom of the funnel lead gen activities. That way, you're bringing in enough leads who are ready to buy that you're driving revenue, but you're not leaving all of that 90% of the market that you could be building a relationship with. You're actually targeting them as well. Now, which way this balance tips for you depends on a couple of key factors. So one factor is your goals. If marketing's goals are to drive leads, then to be honest, a balancing towards top of the funnel activities is going to allow you to drive more leads at lower cost. So if leads is your goal, then it probably makes sense to tilt that way. If revenue is what you're accountable for within marketing and that's what you're being measured on, then really probably drifting towards bottom of the funnel offers is going to be more important. Little asterisk here, I realize that really as marketing and sales teams, we should all be focused on revenue, but to a certain extent, what you do is driven by what the goals that you set for yourselves and the goals that are set for you by leadership team. So I'm just being open and transparent about how to meet those goals. The other factor here that drives things is speed. So if you need to generate lots of leads quickly, BOFU leads, because it's a smaller part of the market, can just take longer and cost more to generate. So if you need to generate as many leads as possible quickly, then drifting towards tofu channels is important. And whenever you're working on tofu programs, top of the funnel activities, having systems in place to nurture the leads is critical, because we don't want to just generate those leads as a vanity metric. We want to have a mechanism for pushing them through so that we can turn them into customers. So tofu and bofu in a balance, tilt the balance depending on the goals and the speed. What about channels? Well, when it comes to channels, it kind of depends again. So let's take paid email as an example. When you're running paid email blasts, you've got a couple of different options, right? You could run educational top of the funnel type campaigns like this one on the left that promotes an ebook. Or you could run product driven, solution driven campaigns designed to try and get people to buy something, as you can see on the right. So which should you do? Well, because for most paid email programs, say working with a life science publisher, we don't know the intent of the people that we're targeting. We perhaps rent a list of 10,000 names. We don't know who's in buying phase. We just hope that they're all interested in our topic. And because we pay to access those 10,000 names, we're not paying per lead. We would recommend leveraging tofu, top of the funnel, education based campaigns to generate as many leads as possible. And interestingly, when I was looking for these screen grabs, we have a database that basically collects and collates all the promotional emails that the majority of the publishers send so that we can analyze them and stuff like that. I found the ebook example here on the first page of 25 emails, and there were like 10 examples. To find the product one, I had to dig to page 6. I'd already looked at hundreds of emails to get to a product one. And what that anecdotally suggests is that the market's seeing this play out in their own results and are focusing their paid email blasts on content-based campaigns. And again, this makes a lot of sense because you're going to get better on open and click-through rates for tofu campaigns than bofu because it's more of the addressable market. It's going to be more interesting to more people. More people are going to open and click on the email, and you're going to get more leads. And because of how those programs are currently costed by most suppliers, it makes sense to focus on getting as many as possible. What about another example? Pay-per-click advertising. Let's take Google Ads. On the left, we've got educational search term, improve my fluorescence image quality. On the right, we have a bit more buying intent, so buy fluorescence microscope. So there are actually no Google Ads results. We'll come on to that in a moment for the educational term, but you can see from the organic results, they kind of make the point here that it's all content to help a person do their microscopy better. Whereas on the right, we can see lots of different product ads because people have shown product requirement in their intent. They want to buy a product. Interestingly, a couple of companies here running Google Shopping ads. If you run Google ads and you're not doing Google Shopping ads, I highly recommend you look into it. Google's invested a lot in placing these ads front and center. They're getting lots of clicks, definitely something worth looking into. So which of these should you do? And the answer here is because we know the intent and because it's variable cost, you should probably do both. What do I mean by that? I mean that because we bid on keywords that we set and we know the intent of the people, we know approximately where they're likely to be in their buying journey. We also know, because we can gather the data from Google, that the cost per click for each of these is going to be different. So the biofluorescence microscope, high buying intent, it's going to have a high cost per click cost. And you can tell that just by looking at this, because you can see all the different companies running ads, there's lots of competition. Whereas the educational top of the funnel search term, there are no ads running and the cost per click is going to be very low. So getting that balance between buying intent, volume, and cost is critical on Google Ads. And the one thing I would say is if your budget's limiting or your bandwidth to manage a more complicated program is limiting, start with bottom of the funnel Google Ads and then expand to top of the funnel Google Ads afterwards to widen your net. So there's a couple of quick examples. One last thing I want to say here, which is if you want to generate top of the funnel leads, should you do email marketing? Because I've shown it as an example. Yes, no, maybe. Depends on the company, depends on the audience, depends on the channel. It's just one option. I'm not suggesting you should use these channels because I've shown them as an example. So wrong offers and or channels to meet the goal. What can you do about it? Audit your goals. What balance of tofu and bofu offers and channels are best suited to your needs? And review your offers against your channels and your tactics. Are you promoting the right offers to the right audiences? And a good lens to look at this through is intent. When we're targeting people, do we know what buying phase they're in or not? And if we don't, we probably should shift towards tofu, top of the funnel activity, so we can get as many leads as possible. Reason number 3 is a poorly optimized website. If you're, thanks to COVID, there's been a major shift towards more digital lead generation activities, even more so than was already happening. Whilst trade shows, I'm sure will come back and will come back strong. Digital lead gen is going to be a major part of most life science companies' arsenal. But the problem with, the problem stroke opportunity with digital lead gen is ultimately you're probably going to be driving people back to your website. Even at a trade show, when people are wandering around looking at all the stands, they're Googling on their phone and they're looking at the company's websites before they go over to speak to a rep. So having a well-optimized website is absolutely critical, because anybody who's tried to use a poorly optimized website has probably felt a little bit like this gentleman here. So what do we mean by a well-optimized website? Well, here's some common website issues that we see that hold back lead generation programs. The first one is it's not clear who you serve. You know, someone lands on your homepage, it's kind of corporate marketing-y fluff, and it's just not clear who do you help and what problem do you solve. That's just not clear from your homepage and perhaps not from other pages on your site. Other website issues are that it's not clear what your specific solution is and why it's unique or why someone should buy from you. If the messaging is verbose or dull or unclear or confusing, that's going to make people go, oh, this is too hard, I'm going to another website. Life science audiences tend to be very data driven, so a lack of proof points and data and reasons to believe can certainly hurt lead generation campaigns as well, as can a lack of social proof, so testimonials, case studies, other things showing how wonderfully happy you've made other customers that gives me as a new customer that confidence that you're going to do just the same for me. Other things that can hold back lead gen programs are hard to navigate websites. This is especially difficult, and you have my empathy for those of you that have websites with lots of products, for example, because finding ways to make those easy to index and navigate through the menu system can be very challenging. Often a really powerful search function is useful, but if it's hard to find the thing that you want as a user and it takes you more than a minute, you're already on to the next website. In terms of finding the things that you want, another issue we often see is no clear call to actions or next steps. The classic is being on a product page, wanting to buy the product, but the button or link or whatever that you're supposed to do to actually be able to buy it is not clear. So it's really important to have things like clear buttons or forms to be able to book a demo, request a sales consultation, whatever it may be, absolutely critical. And while we're on the topic of call to actions, another issue is actually only having bottom of the funnel content and call to action. So only having things that are book a demo, speak to a sales rep. As we've talked about, a big chunk of the audience, 97 to 100% of the audience, are not in the buying phase. They are in the research and discovery phase. So having content and things and opportunities for them to give you their details for more information is absolutely critical, whether that's white papers, ebooks, technical guides, whatever it may be. Let's give those people an opportunity to give us their contact details so that we can remarket to them. While we're on the topic of forms and driving conversions, another thing that hurts lead gen campaigns is forms with too many fields. By too many fields, I mean, honestly, in most cases, more than 5. There are some occasions when it makes sense. You can use lots of form fields as a way of qualifying people so that you don't get too many junk leads. But in general, aim for fewer than 5 fields. We worked with a client many years ago now where they had technical limitations on their forms. We all got frustrated in the end and said we have to get this fixed so that we were able to get the number of forms down and customize each form to each offer. And the conversion rate went from 0.5% to 25%. So we got 50 more leads from a technical fix that in theory should have taken half a day. That's how critical getting your forms right is for your lead gen campaigns. Other things that can have an issue are things like not being optimized for mobile. I'm sure we've all tried to buy something from a website on our phone only to find it was not optimized for mobile. And we went to press a button and basically press the whole website all in one go. That doesn't get you anywhere. It gets very frustrating. You close that tab and you're on to the next one. And it's the same for website load speeds. Last couple here then are campaigns that drive traffic to the homepage. We don't see this as much as we used to, but there was a tendency to basically run Google Ads campaigns or email campaigns that were just driving traffic to the homepage. You get a much better result if you have a very specific offer in your ads or your emails or whatever, and you drive people to a landing page that is about that offer and optimized for conversion. And speaking about being optimized for conversion, the other thing that's still pretty prevalent in the life science industry is the lack of conversion rate tracking and optimization of websites. So many marketers still don't know, if they were asked today, what's the conversion rate of your website? What have you done over the last 3 months to improve the conversion rate of your website? They don't have tracking in place to look at their website as a whole. They don't have tracking in place to look at their landing pages. They don't have tracking in place to look at their product pages. You need this data so that you can make tweaks to your landing pages to improve conversion rate. If you're pouring hundreds of thousands or even millions of pounds into lead generation at the top of the funnel into a website that's not sticky, you're basically wasting your money. So with that in mind, what can you do about this? Well, review your website for these common issues like we had on the previous slide. And as Alicia mentioned, you will get the recording of this, so you'll be able to access that slide. And if you want a screen grab of it, you can email me at paul@biostratamarketing.com. Prioritize fixes as necessary. It's about progress, not perfection. You will not be able to do everything on that list in a week. It's an ongoing pruning and improvement of the website that's required. But do please do this audit before you run your next big lead gen campaign, because I'm yet to see a company, BioStrata included, that couldn't improve its lead gen campaign if it spent a little bit more time on its website before it did it. Right, on to number 4, lack of lead nurturing and sales handover systems. So we're back on the apps, everybody. It's quiz time. What percentage of marketing leads turn into customers? Is it 1% of marketing leads become customers? Is it 10%, 40? Let's see. Number of marketing leads turn into customers. I'm sorry, I'm back. Could you hear? Yeah.
Oh, Paul, yeah, we lost you temporarily, but I think it's okay now. Can you say something? Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, all good. Thanks.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I think my video's Stop. Let's get it back.
Can't see your visual. Okay, sorry folks, just bear with us. I think Paul might need to restart. 1 second. Very sorry for the interruption. Oh, are you back, Paul?
I am, I think. Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
I can hear you. No worries about the camera, but we can still hear you. All good.
Sorry, everyone. Technology. It almost works. Let's try this camera and see if we can just get a result. There we go.
Very good. All good. Thanks.
It's even more fun now. We've got multiple shots from different angles, right? And loads of good time to get responses. So thanks everyone for figuring out what I was probably trying to say and giving an answer. I appreciate that. Right, let's close that poll and see the results. Right, oh, 1%. That's very pessimistic. That's even more pessimistic than I was when I looked into the data. But I think it does go to show you, you know, where we are as marketing as an industry. So the data that I have available suggests that the correct answer is 20%, but actually it sounds like our experiences in the life sciences that it's actually not quite as good as that, unfortunately. So where's that answer come from? Well, a study by Marketing Sherpa that showed that 79% of marketing leads never convert into sales, and that the main issue for this is a lack of good lead nurturing. And I would add good lead nurturing and effective sales handover to that one. So another quick poll. Who here has a documented lead nurturing system in place? And by documented, I mean it's written down, it's shared, everybody knows it. You know, when you generate a lead, who's going to contact them? You know, do they get an email from the automation system? Do they go directly to sales? Is it different based on if the lead is generated on your website versus if it's a lead from a trade show, for example? So do you have that written down? If it's not written down and everybody's aware that there is that planned system for how all leads are dealt with, then I'm afraid you have to say no. We'll give you 10 more seconds on this one. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right, let's close that poll. Excellent. That is much higher than I was expecting. And I think it shows a big shift, because when I was having this discussion with life science marketers perhaps 2-3 years ago, other than maybe a quick email that goes out of the automation system every time someone fills in a form and everybody gets the same email, there wasn't a huge amount of this going on. So I'm actually really pleased to see that that number there is so high. I do believe it's critical to have these systems in place. And to be clear, when I'm talking about lead nurturing, this is life science, right? We've got budgeting cycles, funding cycles, long sales cycles, often in terms of having to get multiple people on board and going through a complex buying process. So it's not like I'm suggesting that we can just put a load of centrifuges next to the checkout and see if people will impulse buy one on their way out of a shop. Instead, lead nurturing here, I'm talking more about having the right content at the right time to help assist and build trust with people as they're going through that buying process, but also just staying top of mind for that big chunk of the market that's not ready to buy right now. How can we stay top of mind so that when they are ready to buy, they choose from us? And at BioStrata, we've built out a number of different workflows that we work with different clients on: choose your own adventure, nudge, accelerate, stay in touch, in order to try and help solve this problem. To be honest, that would be a 45-minute presentation all of its own just to go through those. So if you are interested, you can email me at paul@biostratamarketing.com. We can always have a conversation to discuss those together. But other than that, I'll leave that there, that we need to be investing in lead nurturing and delivering right content at the right time to stay top of mind. The other thing we need to know is when we have nurtured those leads, that we're going to be able to pass them over to sales and something positive is going to happen. Marketing and sales alignment is absolutely critical here. So another poll. It's crazy with polls, this section. Do you have a formal sales handover process and a set of shared definitions for things like marketing qualified lead, sales qualified lead. And were these things defined, and this is critical, in collaboration with the sales team, not marketing has come up with what we think should be a process and a definition, and here sales, here you go. That counts as a no, I'm afraid. So let's start the poll. Let us know. Do you have a formal sales handover process documented and it was done with sales? Getting loads of good responses in here. This is fab. It's quite exciting. It's a bit like watching the National Lottery. Right, we're going to give it 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's see what we get. I've got to be honest, that yes is also higher than I was expecting. That is absolutely fantastic. As you can see, there's still quite a few no's. As I suspected, there's still a fair bit of extra work that we could be doing here. But in general, I'm actually kind of cheered by that result. Marketing and sales alignment is hard. So if you're in the no camp, do not worry. Speak to some of your colleagues in the yes camp and you will find that A, that was hard to do, and B, it's ongoing, I would suspect. But let's talk a little bit more about marketing and sales alignment. So you know you've got problems with marketing and sales alignment when these types of things are happening. You're generating leads as a marketing team, but sales are complaining that they're crappy leads, or they never follow them up, or sales want to generate their own leads because they don't want to use your leads, or maybe they didn't even know that you sent them any leads because you sent them as an Excel file and it got blocked by the spam filter and the salesperson never even got the leads. These are all classic symptoms of a lack of marketing and sales alignment. Gaining that alignment can depend a little bit on the size of your organization, but if you're in a bigger organization, you're probably going to need to get senior leadership buy-in. By that, I mean certainly the person who's responsible for marketing and the person who's responsible for sales, so CMO and a chief commercial officer or whatever, but often even more senior than that. Because getting that alignment is transformative for the success, the revenue generation of the business. You should then create the handover process together with sales, including defining things like MQLs and SQLs together. You should work to create shared data, one CRM and a single view of the buyer that marketing and sales all have access to and are all inputting on. And then it's critical that marketing are only passing what we would call true MQLs over to sales so that sales are getting high quality leads to follow up with and feel like they're not getting the junk leads that sometimes sales complain about. And at the same time, also considering coordinating communications. So there's nothing worse than a lead getting in touch with the sales directly, starting a sales conversation, and then marketing automation systems are still pumping out email after email saying, do you want to buy this product? Do you want to buy this product? And the poor person's like, yes, I'm already speaking to your sales team. So making sure all of those things are working in concert is absolutely essential as well. As is being ready to take those leads back if we lose the deal or the deal goes cold and the salesperson moves on to something else. We've done so much effort to generate that lead and get them that far, bring them back into your nurturing workflows. And then finally, create and implement and review optimization process just to tie all of this together and make sure that you're iterating and the operational elements of this and improving them over time. If you're interested in a bit more detail on this, I can highly recommend this book, Create Togetherness by Jeff Davis, which has this awesome 7-step process for aligning sales and marketing. It touches on some of the stuff that we've got here and a lot more besides. So do check that one out. So lack of lead nurturing and sales handover systems. What can you do about it? Well, you can audit your lead nurturing process. Do you have one? If not, how can you get started? If you do have one, where can it be improved? How can you customize it, for example, based on the channel that each lead came through or what content they interacted with to get to that point? You can also audit your sales handover process and see where that can be improved. Those two things can be transformative to ensure that the leads that you generate turn into sales revenue and that you as a marketing team get the credit that you deserve for all the hard work that you've been doing. So last reason, nearly finished now. Reason number 5 is incomplete performance tracking. So another poll. Let's get our phones. I'll open the poll. Which of the following best describes your organization when it comes to lead gen? We don't track performance. We only track the number of leads we generate. We track the number of leads and customers we generate. We track leads, customers, and revenue, and we do it per channel campaign. We track leads, customers, and revenue, and costs, and we can calculate things like return on investment from a campaign. We're doing all of that in number 6, and we're using that information to refine our future lead gen strategy, or don't know, not applicable. Sorry, that one's a bit of a long one there. Basically, they build from the top to the bottom, where we're not doing much tracking at all, down to the gold standard of we know how much things cost, we know exactly how much revenue and customers we get from each channel and campaign, and we use that to figure out what channels and campaigns we're going to invest in next quarter or next year. So we're going to close this one off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is really interesting. This is really interesting. I've done this before, this one, and quite often it's heavily balanced towards the first couple of options. Usually you're okay for number 2 and 3, but people are finding it harder from number 4 onwards. So again, I'm actually really cheered to see the level of sophistication that many people have been able to build into their systems here. And to be honest, again, it's an ongoing journey. These things are never perfect. They can all, you know, it's progress over perfection all the time. We're building out these things, but that's actually really awesome. So a lot of people doing really good there, but in most cases, a little bit of scope for ongoing improvement. So let's just have a little look at things that we could do to overcome this common issue. The first one is to, if you don't have one, create a marketing metric review process. Quarterly review meetings, it might be post-campaign retrospectives. Lots of people collect data, but they don't necessarily meet to review and discuss the data, what it means and how they can improve. And if you don't formalize that in a process that you have to stick to, you might collect a lot of data but not really use it. Another thing is using specific tracking URLs to try and make that tracking more granular so that you can figure out exactly which campaigns and channels are doing the best, basically. And then, of course, as that gets more complex, it becomes really laborious and hard work. So then leveraging software where you can to automate and simplify bits of this. Progress over perfection, as I said, so use averages or assumptions where you need to plug in any initial gaps. If you can't get the data for how much revenue a specific campaign generated, but you do know how many customers you got, then just use the average customer lifetime value. We know that customers on average spend $1,000, and just plug that in, because at least it will give you some data to start working with, even if it's based on assumptions. You can even do that if you don't know how many customers a campaign generated, but you know how many leads you generated, and you know the average conversion rate of lead to customer is 10%, you can plug that in, and again, you can start to use it to try and create baselines and understand which of your channels and campaigns work the best. If possible, move towards that nirvana that a lot of people had there at the bottom of the poll, in terms of really being able to understand cost per lead, cost per customer, or your conversion rates across your moving through your funnel, and understanding which channels and campaigns perform the best, and then use that to calculate marketing ROI and to drive your future marketing planning. And then finally, where possible, include your overheads as well as things like ad spend. In general, it's reasonably easy to calculate return on investment for something like Google Ads, because Google Ads tells you how much you've spent, tells you how much you've spent on each campaign and on each ad group. And if you set it up properly, it will show you how many conversions you got. But what you really want to be able to factor in is other fees. How much does it cost you in terms of internal resource to maintain your Google Ads account, to write your ads? How much does it cost to create promo emails and to create the content that underpins them? Only then can you have a true understanding of how much those channels and campaigns cost. So number 5, incomplete performance tracking. What can you do about it? Audit your performance metrics tracking and review process. Where can you improve? And review your data collection process. Where can software automation save you time and effort? So there we have it. 5 reasons that lead gen campaigns commonly fail: budget and scope, offers and channels, web optimization, nurturing and handover, and performance tracking. Now, one thing I suck at when I go to talks like this is I'm like, oh, that was all cool. Hopefully you thought this was cool. That was all cool. I learned loads of stuff. I wasn't going to do something, and then I do nothing. So one last poll, I promise, last one. Which area will you focus on first? From what you learned today, what do you think is your priority when you get off this webinar next week? What are you going to focus on? Are you going to focus? Well, let me open the poll. Are you going to focus on ensuring we have got the appropriate budget and we're not spreading ourselves too thin? Reviewing your channels and offers? Are you going to audit and optimize your website? Are you going to improve your lead nurturing and sales handover? You're going to look at performance tracking? You're going to do none of the above because your lead gen's already super magic and your revenue goals are smashed. And so actually your efforts are going to be elsewhere. Or they all seem important and I don't know where to start. Cool. I'm going to give us 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What do we got? Awesome. Website optimization. Yeah, got to do it. Super important. Channels and offers, getting that balance, critical. Evaluate and improve your performance tracking progress. Oh, data is power. None of the above. We're already smashing it. Mega high fives to you guys. Well played. And then they all seem important. I'm not sure where to start. If you're not sure where to start, you can always get in touch with me at BioStrata. We've created a proven process that helps tease apart where you can get the best gains for the least budget and as fast as possible. So we'll be happy to take you through that. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. I've really appreciated your attention. Thanks for being involved in all of the polling and stuff. Really appreciate it. And what we will do now is move over into the Q&A. Right. Alicia, can you just confirm that you can see the Q&A box?
I can indeed. Yes, Paul.
Yeah, technology. Woo. Right. So we've got a bunch of good questions here. We are going to go through them in order. If you've got questions, you can still fire them in. They'll appear at the bottom. That is not a problem at all. First question here then. Oh, it's a good one. How do you measure return on investment for top of the funnel activities? Great question. So if we think about some of the metrics elements that we looked at previously, in an ideal world, you would be tracking even your top of the funnel activities to see what happens to the leads that you generate. You want to make sure that those leads are converting into sales opportunities and those opportunities are turning into revenue, so that you get a feel for how much you spend on top of the funnel activities and how much revenue you generate. Now, that can be really tricky because obviously people interact with multiple campaigns. They don't follow this perfect, beautiful linear buying process that we would all love them to follow. That would be fantastic, but real humans don't do that. And so attribution is an ongoing question here. I think ideally about benchmarking at those different levels. So comparing the number of leads you generate from each campaign is helpful. Then understanding how many of those become MQLs, how many of those become sales opportunities, and what revenue they generate. And of course, as it gets muddier and people interact with multiple pieces of content, you then just have to stick with the model you're going to use, honestly, and choose one and stick with it, whether that's first touch. So in other words, what was the first piece of first conversion point that they had, etc. That's how I would answer that. What channels would you favor for targeting a focus group of leads who have a knowledge of your business product? That is a good question. Whenever I think about a group of leads of a certain size, I'm going to make an assumption here that maybe we're talking about less than 10 or less than 50 or less than 100. Typically, we'd be turning to account-based marketing approaches for that in order to really, assuming that those leads understood who we were and they had the budgets to spend with us that would warrant that level of focus in marketing to them, we'd leverage account-based marketing to give them a tailored marketing experience, to be honest. When they know your business, often you can see that you might already have a sales relationship with them in some aspects. So this is again where marketing and sales alignment is key. There's times when marketing is well placed to generate and nurture leads, but there's definitely a time when it should just go to the sales team and the sales team can start to build those relationships. So hopefully that helps answer that question. What strategies do you favor when using your own leads database for lead conversion? Oh, I've lost that one. Oh, it's gone. Maybe it was deleted. Apologies if that's disappeared and I can't see it. Oh, here, no, here it is. What strategies do you favor when using your own leads database for lead conversion? Are they considered tofu or bofu? Your own leads database. That's a good question. It kind of depends on the level of engagement and interaction that you've had with those leads. So let's look at this in terms of examples. So depending on the tools and software you're using for this, if you're using an automation platform like HubSpot, you will know how when the person last converted on your website, for example, or the last emails that they interacted with. You can actually use that to set up things like lead scoring for how that engaged they are in learning about you and your products and services. And you can even use signals to figure out how far they are in their buying journey. And I'll give you an example. If someone converted yesterday to download a top of the funnel ebook, they're still very top of the funnel. But if instead they converted on that top of the funnel ebook and then they visited a number of product pages and then they requested a demo or to speak to a salesperson, they're actually bottom of the funnel triggers. And so using that to set up your lead scoring can actually make it much easier to track where people are in their journey based on their lead score and how long ago their last activity, on your website or with your emails were. And of course, you can build that into your lead scoring as well. Then you can use that information to tailor what type of content that you send them, both on the content they've interacted with previously, but just how engaged they are. And if you've got people, even if you've got someone who's a bottom of the funnel lead, requested a demo or to speak to a salesperson, say 3 months ago, we'd then consider those top of the funnel again now if that lead has gone cold. If we followed up with them, they still didn't take the sales meeting, we'd put them back into one of our stay in touch workflows, which in general leverage a mixture of content, but most of it's top of the funnel. And until we can get them to nibble again on something or get them to visit a page on our website that might indicate they are closer to that buying decision, they're starting to review products again, or maybe they want to watch a demo or whatever it may be. So hopefully that helps answer that question. And then, I don't need this box in here. Let's put that. Do you recommend Google Ads for licensing partnerships and discovery services? Oh, that's a great question. So ultimately, Google Ads, the classic, I'm sorry, it's not the answer you want, is it depends. So it's critical when evaluating channels, all channels, but especially Google Ads, to do the research to try and get a feel for what are people searching for in your market. There's a number of tools you can use for this, like SpyFu and SEMrush, to do the research and see, on average per month, how often are people searching for things relevant to your business. You can then use that to start to make an inference on whether or not Google Ads could work for you. If you've got the budget, I'm a massive fan of running experiments, because even if you use SpyFu or SEMrush, the data is always approximations. It doesn't actually show how many impressions and clicks you're going to get. So if you've got the expertise in house or access to an expert like an agency and you've got the budget, run a small test. Run a test on a handful of keywords that you think are going to be relevant for your business, and just see what clicks that you get. Use a uber compelling offer. I think if you're running a trial like this, you might want to look at, especially for what we're talking about here, where there's not an obvious buy this product, probably run a tofu, a top of the funnel offer. Really compelling, really great landing page, really compelling offer, really small, easy to convert form. Run it for a couple of months and see who you get through. Monitoring the data frequently, say every week, just to see that you're getting impressions and that the click-through rates on your ads are reasonable, and just see if it can work for you. And as I said earlier in the presentation, just giving the campaign enough time to be sure that it isn't going to work before you stop it. So it's very tempting when you run Google Ads. You run them for a week, you spend, I don't know, £500, £1,000, and you don't get any leads, and you're like, oh no, it's not going to work. I'm guessing that for licensing partnerships and discovery services, this is a high ticket item. We only probably need to convert one lead a year from Google Ads into a customer, and then we're going to make our money back on our ads. So we've got to have that investment mindset that sees us run it long enough to see what we can get. let me put this in terms of most recent because we've got some new ones coming in, which is great. As an experimenter, would you run Google Ads if SEMrush showed a very low monthly search? Uh, the short answer is yes. The long answer is research tools are fantastic, but there's still a lot to be said for thinking intelligently about the search terms and what people might realistically be looking for. Um, if in doubt, and you've got the budget to be able to risk on it, not being overly, too prescriptive in terms of the search terms you use, either in terms of, sorry, this is getting a bit Google Ads nerdy now, but in terms of the phrase matches you use. So perhaps using broader phrase matches so that people who search for things that sound a bit like your term still see your ad, or using search terms that are only 1, 2, or 3 words rather than long tail terms that have 7 or 8, which by definition are going to have very low searches. Great thing about Google Ads is when you run experiments, Google Ads has tweaked the amount of data they give you recently, which sucks. But when you run experiments on Google Ads, you are shown by Google what people searched for exactly when they clicked your ad. So what you can do is you can use that. It's called the search terms report. It tells you what people really search for. So let's take just drug discovery services. That's the keyword we're targeting. Then we look at the the search term report, and we see that loads of people are actually searching for preclinical drug discovery services, or I don't know. And then we're like, oh my goodness, everybody who clicks on our ad is actually looking for preclinical. Let's twist our ad copy and let's move a bit more into targeting preclinical. Or we might see in the search term reports that people are using other combinations of terms that we hadn't thought of that we can then use in our strategy. Google Ads for B2B in life science, are you able to give an idea of how much a proxy campaign is likely to cost? Oh, that's a million. To be honest, the simple answer to that question is it depends. And you should always base what you're willing to spend on Google Ads by actually starting with the end in mind. How much revenue would we expect to generate from a customer? Even if you've got no data, you can make some back of the envelope approximations. How many leads, how many sales opportunities convert into customers? How many leads do we need to get a certain amount of sales opportunities? And then you can start to figure out, well, if a customer's worth $50,000 or $10,000 to me, and I need to get 500 clicks, you can start to work out how much you'd be willing to pay on those clicks to get that customer and still make a profit. So when you're planning how much you're willing to invest, it's best to start with that sort of funnel mapped out, base all the conversion rates on assumptions to begin with if you don't know them, because you'll soon start to collect real life data when you run the programs, but give yourself that confidence that you're at least going to break even if you're able to sign up 1 or 2 customers. I see we've got 1 minute to go, so I guess maybe we should probably stop there, Alicia, before I get too excited and dive into the rest of these.
How many more questions do you have, Paul? I mean, I can stay on the line a bit longer if the people asking them can as well. Alternatively, I mean, we could maybe do 1 or 2 more, and then if there's any unanswered ones, I'm very happy for people to reach out to One Nucleus, and we can do an introduction to you, Paul, if they want to follow up. Would that be okay?
I've just removed all the questions we've answered, and I see there's only 1 more. So I guess
let's go for it.
Yeah. All right, cool. We will do that. Thanks for all of you that are hanging about, and those that you have to run off to another call. I know the feeling. Hope it goes well. Right, last question here then is, what number of touches and cadence timing do you recommend in a nurture sequence? Why do all the good questions is the answer? It depends. It depends on factors such as what the last activity is that they took. So if someone comes through your website as a lead and they fill in a form to speak to a salesperson, you need to move on that straight away. Depending on your process, that may go straight to sales, but let's assume they want to book a demo to look at an instrument, that they should get the options like either via email or on the web page to book that demo as soon as possible. And if they don't book that demo, they should get an email follow-up a day later reminding them that they wanted to book a demo. So in that context, speed is critical. When you've got someone who converts on something that's a bit more top of the funnel, like an ebook or a white paper, they're not in buying mode. So certainly don't push them to sales, because the worst thing when you download an ebook, and I'm sure we've all experienced this, is somebody's on the phone. You downloaded an ebook. Have you got $100,000 to spend on some stuff because I'd really like your money? No, you're not having my money. I just wanted to read the ebook, right? Nothing more frustrating than having that happen. So managing that is a different kettle of fish entirely. And in those cases, what you probably want to do is follow up with them immediately, because you can send them an email that says, hey, you requested an ebook and here's the link for that ebook. And by the way, here's some other content that you might find interesting. A couple of links, additional pieces of content. If they click on those, not only are they engaged in the ebook, they want to learn more. So send an email that delivers the next piece of content, and then perhaps give them another offer. But it might be to speak to an expert this time. These guys are a bit more interested. We can nudge them a bit more into a more bottom of the funnel activity, like speaking to a salesperson. If they don't interact with that, we could give it a couple of extra days and then send them another email, again with some nurturing piece of content that's relevant to where they are in their buying journey, not too salesy. See what they nibble on. If they go a bit quiet, they can go into our stay in touch workflow, which is honestly typically a monthly or a quarterly newsletter. So it's about looking at what's appropriate for what the lead last did, if that makes sense. And this is why it's important to build out your lead nurturing process over time, and the complexity of it, sadly, so that it fits appropriately for where the lead is in their journey with you, but also their buying journey overall, so that you can send them stuff that they're actually going to want to receive at a cadence that's not going to annoy them. Cool. That's the last one. I'll shut up for a bit. That's a lot of my voice. You've all done very well to put up with that for so long. Thanks for that.
Paul, thank you so much. I feel really energized after that presentation. I don't know about everyone else on the line. You've got so many wonderful comments in the chat box on Zoom, and I agree, it's been extremely informative. I've certainly learned a lot. As business development, there's definitely some takeaways there for me too. So yeah, really informative. And just thank you so much for your time. And then thank you to all our attendees as well. I hope you enjoyed the session, and thanks for sticking with us. And with that, just to, of course, if you do want me to make an induction to Paul, very happy to do so and to help. But with that, we'll wish you a good rest of your day. Thanks so much for joining. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me.